So now getting into the day of the event, we'll get into what happens when we issue any of the warnings. So when we issue severe thunderstorm warnings, tornado warnings, flash flood warnings, it generally means that severe weather is imminent or occurring. Get to shelter immediately. Here's the different types of warnings that we have. We issue severe thunderstorm warnings for thunderstorm wind gusts greater than or equal to 58-mile-an-hour winds, hail greater than or equal to an inch in diameter. Tornado warnings generally are issued for confirmed tornado reports. Doppler radar indicated as well, like whether it's rotation or debris ball. And then we have flash flood warnings as well, which are generally issued for 6 inches or more of flowing water across roadways, and a rapid rise in water that is a threat to life and property. This is generally occurring right now. For any of these warnings, you're going to want to take cover. Especially if a severe thunderstorm warning is in effect, you want to seek shelter in a sturdy building away from windows. Monitor for any tornado reports, especially if there's a day where there's a lot of shear. And then do not go outside to film the storm. It's better to take safety and take shelter in these particular situations. We'd rather you not put yourself in danger. If a tornado warning is in effect, you definitely want to go to a basement or an interior room immediately. Get into the tornado safety position under something sturdy, just like that picture on the right there, and stay in that place until the warning expires. That's when you want to have your weather radio with you to make sure you can hear if the storm is passed or not if you're out of harm's way, or have a TV broadcast with some of your local TV meteorologists on it. So we use the acronym here, ACES: Awareness, Communications, Escape Routes, and Shelter. So knowing the weather situation, for communications, how are you keeping in touch, whether it's a cell phone, whether it's a weather radio, things like that. How about escape routes? What happens if you have a tornado bearing down on you and you don't really have a shelter to be in? Do you have shelters that you can go to within your town? Do you have a shelter underneath the ground somewhere? Where is that shelter? It's also important to make sure you are safe. Similar to what airlines say about oxygen masks, you want to make sure you're safe before you are out filming some of the weather for being a spotter for us. We would rather you be safe than put your life in danger and spot for us. So how are you getting the warnings? I mentioned the weather radio itself. They're programmable to your specific tower, to your specific location. It's also got a battery backup during power outages. And the weather radios can get tone alerts for warnings when they're not in use to alert you. We have our webpage, themobile.weather.gov, that you can access on your smartphone. We also have a widget as well that kind of works just like an app. You can add an icon to your phone's home screen, and that is the website right there that you can access it. All places where you can get our severe tornado and flash flood warnings. There are also smartphone apps through FEMA and Red Cross, and you can put in for Android, Apple, and BlackBerry as well. And you can get alerts for up to 5 locations. For Red Cross, we have 2 apps with alerts and safety information. They also have emergency apps, a tornado app just for tornadoes as well. And you can find all this information on our real-time weather links for planning and preparedness page on our IWX SkyWarn website. So as we kind of move along here was a particular warning that we had for the storm that was depicted on the right there, reflectivity on the bottom and velocity on the top. And we can see here that we actually had spotters in the field that confirmed the tornado, and we will generally list that under our source, just to kind of make that the most up-to-date information for the public to see. And why your report matters? It is great because we can verify what we're seeing on radar. We have more confidence from ground truth, and oftentimes, especially in that previous picture you saw, it can be difficult to interpret what we're actually seeing. So weather spotters confirmed this particular tornado. And after the storms, it's often the idea to go into the damage, look for survivors, begin trying to take things out of there that you think is salvageable. We want you to keep your safety in mind in this situation. Remember in the Twister movie, for example, that the meteorologists ran in to save their mother. A lot of times you want to leave that up to the safety experts and the fire departments, things like that. And obviously in that bottom picture there where you see flooded roadways, take safety as much as possible. Don't cross those roadways if flooded. And we love your pictures as well. This picture on the top left there with a piece of plywood right through the window. The little outhouse here next to this pond that was shifted over. Generally, outhouses, things like that, are not on any foundations, so that kind of gives us an idea of the strength of the storm. If you have your drone out there, we love drone pictures, especially for in crop fields. You can't see really from the outside portion of the crops, so just kind of seeing it from aloft, you can see the tornado track, and then just seeing damage like the bottom left there as well is a good indication of how strong the storm was. And the odd damage pictures that you have as well. This receipt from Kokomo is actually found in Marion, Indiana. Just kind of a, wow, look at that type of thing. So just kind of a summary of what happened. We had 14 tornadoes in our area that day. There's a total of 21 in all across Indiana and Ohio. We had 8 low-end tornadoes, EF0, 3 EF1s, 2 EF2s, 1 EF3, and 26 tornado warnings were issued across the area. An average lead time of around 16 minutes. Every tornado had a warning, and that's a good thing. 0 fatalities, only 1 minor injury, and the strongest tornado during that day was an EF3 in Woodburn, Indiana, at around 5:30. It had winds around 160 miles an hour, width of around a half mile, and a path length of close to 6 miles. Here were some of the reports that occurred during that day. Generally, a south and east of our forecast area saw most of the reports. And the Woodburn tornado, again, was the strongest tornado. You can see that in eastern Allen County. Here were most of the warnings that were issued during that day. I mentioned that most of the early stuff was south and east, and then we had another sector that came in later in the day, and that kind of was more central Indiana and more north and west Ohio. Here's just a loop. You can see that early area across the south and east moved in the northeast direction, and then we had that other line of storms move in later in the day. What happened earlier in the morning is that we had an MCV that kind of brought its better ingredients into the area in the morning. It wasn't necessarily modeled very well, and so we were able to kind of adapt to it, just kind of see that things in the morning weren't modeled very well and adjust things after that. We put out the watch as a result of some of the early conditions that were out there. And then we could see right away that storms were all going tornadic. So it was a good indication that most of what the warnings we were going to be putting out were going to be tornado warnings. So thank you very much for paying attention to our Storm Spotter YouTube video. We hope you enjoyed the spotter training this year, and stay tuned for next year's spotter training as well.